Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Really excited you agreed to chat with me today.
Thank you.
I just want to ask some quick questions. Starting with, you've shown a huge passion for defense
Mhm.
this year, both on the trainings and the briefing side, actually. This year, you're the defense track lead for Black Hat USA. Can you tell us a little bit more about your role as a track lead? What does that make you sort of responsible for, and a bit about the reviewing process?
Responsible makes you sound like an adult. Big word. The track lead is kind of there to make sure that everybody gets reviewed. I think there's a big misconception that you never get reviewed a lot when you submit to Black Hat, and that's not the truth. So it's there to make sure that everybody's doing reviews. The normal review process is it's not just a 1 minute wham bam thank you ma'am. We do spend a lot of time on the submissions. Like that's the nature of it. Damn it, all of us were intrigued about this stuff. We're interested. This is our passion too. So we'll chat on the Slack channel. We'll say, hey, this is a cool talk. If you thought of this, and somebody will say, well, actually no, this could be, da, 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 and you go down rabbit holes. And the track lead's kind of there to herd cats, herd cats.
That makes sense.
And also to
Uh,
make sure
you,
that people are getting everything they can to make sure the reviews are good. We're reaching out to people if we're not sure, if you have to Zoom or chat to somebody, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of a track lead.
okay. Yeah, actually, fun fact, I looked and you did over 500 reviews this year alone. I think that that might not even be all of them because it was just a quick tally,
There was a few. There was a few.
just a bit. You were community track lead last year,
Yeah,
right? How was that different,
that
if
was
it was?
cool because it was the first one that we did, and I think it's been brewing for a long time. Um, InfoSec is not unique. We do have a lot of problems like everybody else does, but I don't think we ever talked about them. And it's not always about pwning and popping shells and calc and all that stuff. Like there's a lot of issues that we all face. So we've lost a lot of friends in the community who suffered from mental issues and addiction problems and everything else. And I think for me it was good. It was like it was a mature thing to say, hey, we are a leading hacking conference, but this also impacts people. Like it's really important, and that's what I loved about the community one. It was about what can you do that helps others? What can you do to help yourself burn out? It's okay to admit, man, I have a problem, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And I think a lot of the newcomers coming in, they get this feeling that you need to be burning 22 hours a day. There's so much to learn. You've got to pop and chill out that guy. No. So when you have like real big names in the industry standing up saying, yeah, I burnt myself out. I developed a dependency problem. I did this. It's the youngsters going, shit, they're human. Okay. Oh, sorry, I saw. But yeah, so it was definitely different, and it was needed. Still early days, but yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I liked about the development of the track is more and more people started saying, okay, well, I also do this program, or I have this thing that I think could also contribute to Black Hat.
Yep.
And it's allowed more community programs, more partnerships, in addition to just shedding light and making it a more comfortable conversation.
Yep. Yep.
Cool. So speaking of CFP and all things reviewing,
Mhm.
I watched an interview you did in the past where you talked about some of the key themes that you think are essential focus areas for research. You listed defense and privacy.
Mhm.
Do you feel like those are still kind of leading areas of focus that you'd like to see more research in, or are there other ones?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I love the offensive realm. It's been my world for a long time, but
Mhm.
I almost am getting tired of the fact that it's too easy to own stuff today, and it's too easy to own me, like my personal data, my family's data, my wife's data, the kids' data. Like, and it's almost embarrassing because it's like you've spent coming up to 3 decades in an industry. We need to get better at making stuff secure. And yes, it's great finding bugs. I still do it today with my day job. But the defensive side, that's hard. Like it's really damn hard to build strong, secure stuff. And I think that's why the defensive track was really important because it sort of the way I see a review coming in, I want me as an attendee, like when I go to Black Hat, I am still a fanboy. Like I love sitting in the front row. I love taking notes. I love tweeting about shit. I love that stuff. And I want people to say, all right, my company's moving to the cloud and it's great. We don't know how to secure it. Okay, there's a talk. I'm going to go along. I want that seed to be planted. I want people to get excited, to get enthusiastic, and to go, do you know what? I can use some of this tomorrow. Or, wow, I don't feel so bad now. I know where I've got to go. Or there's other people suffering. That's one, a good talk. And two, that's what I want from the defensive track. I don't want people to think, man, hackers are just winning. You can't get privacy and security online. Forget about it. Everybody move to a desert island and do nothing. That's, for me, the defensive track and everything about it.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned a little bit about submitting and submissions. So the Black Hat Europe CFP track is open right now, in addition to a couple of other cons. You are popular for sharing kind of regular thoughts and opinions on what you'd like to see. Are there any quick pointers that you would give out to people who are looking at submitting maybe for the first time, or have submitted a couple of times maybe and haven't figured out why their research isn't getting accepted?
So I don't think I think the first thing is, do not think that your research is good enough. Like that's not the case. Black Hat gets a lot of good submissions, and it's a reality. There are a certain number of slots, over a certain number of days. You can't have everybody. We could quite easily fill 3 or 4 Black Hats from the B list and the C list and the D list. That's a given, right? And we're very, very lucky. We get some amazing stuff. I think there's still a lot of themes that happen with submissions. I don't think people get non-technical people to read their submission, because what we're looking for with a submission, we want to see an idea, and it could be new, it could be old, it could be groundbreaking, it could be whatever you want, but we want to understand what you're trying to articulate. And that point has always seemed to be the kryptonite that a lot of people have. It's like you go very deep down the rabbit hole, deep technical stuff, but you end up really going, I don't know what they're saying here. I think that's maybe where I do it with my wife. Like sometimes if I'm writing stuff, I'll get her to read it. She's not technical. And she goes, "You're talking shit. Like, what does this mean?" I'm like, "Sweet," because a loved one will tell you the truth. And I think that's what's needed. And then two, like, don't be scared to give us a massive submission. We've seen submissions where the bios are longer than the submission. Like, it's very hard to make an informed decision when your bio, you can tell you put some time into that. The submission is 4 paragraphs. I don't know what. But as always, like, I'm happy to review submissions. I've been doing it for a long time now. I spend a lot of time on it, and I will Zoom you and Skype you. No, I won't Skype you. Skype's dead. Stop using Skype. I will use any modern means to communicate with you. But yeah, like, I want to see good submissions. All the review will do. So yeah, please reach out. There's plenty of people to help.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think people realize so many of you are always offering your services on Twitter and on all these platforms saying, hey, I will look at your submission or I'll give you some tips. Definitely. As someone who sits on the other end who is not technical and reads some of these abstracts and these talks, it's so refreshing when you see, like, okay, key takeaways. Maybe I can't translate what someone has actually done into layman's terms, but I can understand kind of the logic of it, or that it's logical, that it makes sense. So yeah, I totally agree. There's some abstracts where, even though they're technical, I have no idea what they're talking about, but I can tell it makes sense.
The key takeaway thing is really important. The other thing I think a lot of people seem to forget is that the research is great, the submission is great, but how you present it is really, really important. And that's changed a lot over the couple of years. We're no longer the PowerPoint 5 bullet points person speaking in monotone voice like this, but I really do. People fall asleep. You have to balance the fact that in Black Hat, there's going to be thousands of people. So you're not going to have a screen in front of you. So you have to make sure your slides are visible and know your slides. And effectively, I've always thought of it as, when you do a presentation, it's a journey, right? If it's a deep technical thing, give a link to the white paper, right? Where people can download that and consume it offline. The talk is about your journey. What did you do? What itch did you scratch? Why did you do it? The problems you solved and the things we love. Please tell us about your failures, because I can tell you now, nothing ever works. And if it does all the time, you're not doing research right. tell us about your failures, because people actually love that. And it's the comments that we get going, wow, like we didn't realize that they spent 6 months trying to do this, and only in the last week it worked. I was like, yeah, that's pretty normal. So yeah, it's the submissions are hard, and I get people get stressed about them, but there are people out there who, me included, are happy to help. Just reach out.
Yeah. Okay, so switching gears a bit, I don't think a lot of people realize you were also on the trainings review board,
Yes,
or
busy man.
actually that there is even two, and that they're two separate
Yep.
things. Now that Black Hat Europe training selection calls are done, can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like, or how it's different from briefings?
Yep.
Um,
So I joined the training review board when I left Senspost. Senspost has been training at Black Hat since 2000. 2001, 2002.
mhm.
It is very different to the Briefings review board. It's made up of people who have trained. Training is not something that you can just quickly walk into. I want to smash that misconception very quickly. I love teachers, and in the lockdown, I love our teachers more than ever. They deserve to be paid bankers money, because taking care of children, I swear I've got grey hair. Training is a very unique experience. And what we look for in the training sessions is a couple of things. One, it needs to fit in with trends. Like, we kind of know what people want, and we get a lot of feedback, and we try and fit in training there. So it could be everything from really niche stuff to very important stuff such as cloud. Like, cloud is a massive thing for obvious reasons. People want to be trained up. We then look at the trainers themselves. Um, I've become quite strict on understanding how courses need to be built and what I expect from a course. So I use a military term called METAL, which is the Mission Essential task list. And the idea is I want to see structure. I want to see that you have 2 days training, so 16 hours, 8 hours a day, 1 lunch break, 2 coffee breaks. I want to see modules that fit into that. And I want to see that a student comes in, will be taught this. This is the mission or the class objective. They learn the stuff, the teacher trains them, make sure that they get the idea of what's been taught, can test for that maybe somehow, and then they move on to the next one. So that students aren't left behind. They don't feel like the problem that a lot of trainers had is it's almost a fire hose. It's I'm going to cram as much as I can into the training session because it sounds amazing. But then you have, and I've been in courses like this where they go, we're not going to cover this now, I'll give you a PDF. No. Plan your
Yeah.
lessons, learn how to train. It's not a case of you just standing up PowerPointing. Those days are gone. So we look at that. We look at labs, like, as the others will tell you, I am over VMware images. I am sorry. All right. Understand the cloud. Learn how your students, your customers want to do stuff. They don't want to wait 4 hours copying stuff over. They want cloud environments. They want modern stuff. So the training ones are probably a lot harder because we do review every single course, and we nitpick and we go into it, and probably an hour and a half per submission. I reach out to a lot of trainers. I've worked with a lot of them. I know them, and a lot of them are friends. It's intense, the training one.
Yeah, and that's what people don't realize also. It's just because someone has trained at Black Hat previously doesn't mean your new course or even the course you've taught before is getting in. You guys
No,
also look at feedback. You look at, like you said, the trends and where the market currently is. If you can't bring your old cost that no longer is relevant.
no, I tell you now, the feedback that your customers give you, we review. Like, it's not just because you're a big, huge name in the industry. Like, if your customer's saying this course sucked, and there have been some, and we reach out saying, listen, what happened? How can we help you there? Like, and we want every training. We want people there. Like, there's no weird, this is a special club. But at the end of the day, if the customers are saying this course was terrible, we have to step in.
Yeah. Yeah. The review board truly wants to foster the InfoSec community. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not getting paid. This is something that you do out of volunteering. So obviously
Yep.
there would be
Yep.
no benefit of gatekeeping.
Yep.
Okay. Switch gears. So you, in addition to all of your work and all of your volunteer activities, also have hobbies. Like, who has time for this? Who are you? I thought it would be fun for you to tell us about some of them.
My hobbies. I used to be a documentary photographer, conflict and documentary. I still try and do that. Having children ruins your life. No, sorry, takes away all your spare time. But I'm finding ways of getting back into that now. I'm not going to be going to war zones anymore. My wife won't let me. But there's that. And I also restore classic Mercedes cars. So I have a few of them, and yeah. And then the new ones, the normal things, BMXing and skateboarding with the kids. It's nothing like a middle-aged man in his middle 40s skateboarding and falling over. Yeah.
I'm sure there's knee pads involved.
Oh yeah, totally.
um, that's great, actually. Okay, so have you found that you've had more time now that we've been in this kind of pandemic quarantine situation, or?
No, probably less. I think the childcare angle has been very tough. I swear, I love teachers. I miss them so much. I send them text messages and everything. Um,
You're
it's
like, hey, want to come over?
yeah, you want to take the kids, really? Um, it's been hard. I think a lot of people went into the quarantine thinking we're going to do some amazing things, and I don't
Hmm.
think that's the case. I think the mental stress, and there's that inevitable. We talked about the community thing. Like the lockdown has produced a lot of ugliness that isn't being talked about, and a lot of mental suffering. And I'm seeing it with a lot of friends who, and myself included, like I went through a very bad patch because
Yeah.
you're locked up, you can find. So yeah, there's that. There's the kid angle. No, I've done as much as I can. I try to balance it out without killing myself. But yeah, no.
Yeah, and I think that's actually what's more important is so many of us went into this thinking, I'm going to do all these things. Like now I have all this time for these hobbies. And then I know for myself, especially at the beginning, part of the stress and the mental anguish was me saying, oh, I'm not doing enough, look at what
Yep.
everybody else in the world is doing or just assuming what other people are doing.
Look at what they're
And then now
baking.
we're learning,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Jesus, how are they
yeah, a
baking all
banana
this
bread. Yeah. And now we've come around to like being more patient and kind to ourselves of
stuff?
like, no, I'm still working, or even if I'm not working, I'm living through a traumatic experience, So
Yeah. Yeah.
totally understandable.
Yeah.
Okay, my last big question, my favorite question. What are some briefings you're excited about this year?
Yeah. There's every year or every con I try and do my top talks, and this one's been hard because there's actually a lot of good ones. Um,
Hmm.
I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm going to go through some of the ones that really excite me. On the defensive side, we're seeing more and more CPU related attacks, and this is quite cool. It's like where they used to be very niche and you would never really hear of them, we're now seeing a lot. And it's quite cool. So there's one by Matthew Riley. It's about specific CPU side channel attacks, but also mitigations. So very cool for the defensive side. So that's quite cool. Staying in this defense track, Craig Ingram and Camille McKinnon have come up with a cool one about engineering empathy. Like, how do you adopt proper software engineering principles and process into security? And it's based off their experience for a very large cloud provider. And it's quite cool because you get to see the journey that they're doing. There's actually a lot of good ones in defense this year, which is definitely a sign of maturity. I'm partial to hardware. Um, and that's quite cool because again, like we had such a strong track. Oh my hat, it was hard because there were really, really good attacks. A few that I like. There's one by Christopher Wade, super talented person, and he's looking at custom firmware for embedded mobile chipsets. Like, wow, okay, cool. We've got one from Ben Seri and Gregory Vishnepolsky, I think I said that right, which is quite cool because it's almost old school in a way. It's Ethernet, and the millennials looking at this, that was the old school cable that we plugged in, not this wireless. But what was cool is they've looked at this and found a really cool way to do Ethernet packet in packet attacks. Okay, that's phenomenal. And again, we're starting to see this with the Black Hat submissions where people are now looking at old technology that we were owning turn of the century and going, hey, that's cool. Nobody's looked at Ethernet for 10 years. What's up with that? So that's quite cool. What are some of the other ones? The cloud security one's interesting. Again, last 2 years, we saw a lot of vendors let their people submit talks. Now, traditionally, if you submitted to Black Hat or DEF CON or ShmooCon or CanSec West or any of the cons, you generally weren't allowed to do it as your company, right? And it was always weird because companies never, oh, you can't speak at a hacking conference. But if you look at the last 2 years, we've had Microsoft, Google, and throw all their engineers at it. And it's not just fancy marketing talks. It's, Microsoft engineers talking about how they owned O365. Like, what? Okay. And we've got quite a few of those in the cloud one at the moment, like some really good talks about how people are broken stuff. We also have James Kettle. Literally, he is the Justin Bieber of AppSec. I've decided that's his name, right? Everybody loves him. And every year he comes in with these talks where you think, God damn it, dude, you can dance. He's found a new way. Bug bounty people are mild for this one crazy little trick. Web cache entanglement, how to poison it. It's going to be great because it's really, really good. And then another one in the hardware stuff. Bjorn Reitenberg has managed to break Thunderbolt 3. Like, again, phenomenal reason. So there's some really, really good talks. I don't know, I'm biased, like we're on the review board. But let me tell you, when we review that stuff, we go, oh my God, that's amazing. I want to see more. I want to look at this. You think, damn, you're ballsy. That's impressive. So it's going to be a good comp, as usual.
Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing some of your highlights with us and for talking with me on your late evening.